And welcome everybody. You are listening to WRUULP Savannah, Georgia, 107.5 FM, WRUU.org. We are Savannah Soundings Community Radio with Global Soul. This is the Adam Messer Show, and I'm your host, Adam Messer. And today I have a couple of really special guests. You might have seen the new book series coming out called Rescue Radar. I know there's been a little bit of buzz around town with some of the children's authors and other stuff, and I definitely noticed it. But we have the author, Kristi Chandler, and the illustrator, Kevin Grogan, with us today. Welcome, y'all. How you doing?
We're doing good. Thanks, Adam.
Doing just fine.
Awesome, and we're going to be talking about Rescue Radar and the other stuff that y'all are working on today. And of course, for those tuning in, Sebastian's with us in the studio, and I want to give a shout out to everybody out there in the world today, to all of our listeners and all the folks out there. And so, Sebastian, would you mind playing us a little bit of live music? So this is Sebastian Messer, everybody. Awesome, Bass. I know you've been working on that Eric Clapton. Yeah, so it's getting there. You sound pretty good. Hey, play me something on one of your original songs. You know, I want to give a shout out to Terry and Darlene Dremel, and also Miss Harriet, for listening all the time. Thank you all for so much. And I also want to give a shout out to Connie, Rom, and all of the other folks out there who listen to WRUU. And the supporters, y'all are the ones that really make this happen. So thank you. So this is one of your originals. All right, Bass. Thanks, Bass. All right, so everybody, let me read the bio for Kristi Chandler and Kevin Grogan. And you might recognize Kevin Grogan from being on the show before with the Bootsy and Sal podcast. So he's been on here before. So Kristi Chandler was Rescue Radar's mom, affectionately known to her friends as Cookie. She was born in Texas but spent her formative years in Central and Southwest Florida. You'll have to forgive me. I have to pull a little closer to the screen. I'm getting old. She has resided in Savannah since 2016. A graduate of Riverdale High School in 1991, she obtained her associate's degree from Florida State University and bachelor degree from Barry University. While working as a supervisor of 911 Communication Center, Kristi met Radar for the first time. Radar was saved from a dog fighting ring where he was used as a bait dog. With 3 dogs already at home, at first Kristi was unwilling to take on another, but once she saw Charlie, she couldn't refuse him. Charlie's, and this is quote, quote, air quote, Charlie's ears would perk up whenever he heard her voice, standing up like Radar, searching for a signal. So Charlie became Radar, and the two were inseparable for almost 10 years. Radar brought joy to Kristi's life. He passed away in 2019 after a prolonged illness, but just before that, Kristi had a chance encounter with James Dean, illustrator and author of Pete the Cat series. This amazing inspiration provided the push needed for Kristi and local author Kevin Grogan to collaborate on an idea that she had been sitting on, and Rescue Radar was born. Wow. Kevin Grogan. Kevin, was raised in Windsor, Connecticut, and is the youngest of 5 children. He graduated Windsor High School and went on to attend the New Hampton School. My son goes to New Hampton, so a little mental there. New Hampton School in New Hampton, New Hampshire. Is there enough news there? For postgraduate studies, he earned his bachelor degree in science degree from Westfield State College in Massachusetts. He is a father, a United States Army veteran, and served 16 years in law enforcement. Kevin is the author of Black Sheep, White Cop, Savannah Exposed, his memoir of of the time spent with an elite police unit and his experience during his own trial in Savannah, Georgia. This foray into his creative side has brought a great deal to the Rescue Radar series. He's an illustrator and has an amazing knack for bringing in the wonderful characters to life. So, wow, that's great. And Kevin, it's kind of interesting because I did not know until I think we were talking, chit chatting one day, and I didn't know that you were an illustrator as well. And obviously, so a little backstory here, y'all. If you've been listening to the show for a little while, you know that I started the Savannah Quill in 2016, and I've hosted several conventions and several author meet and greets and whatever. And last year we hosted the Savannah Author Expo at the Savannah Coffee Roasters, which I just heard that they're going to be reopening tomorrow, which is pretty cool. But we hosted that, and Kevin had sent me a message, and he was like, "Hey, do you have any spots open?" And I was like, "Yeah, we'd love to have you." And I got to meet Kevin and Kristi last year, just briefly. It was kind of like one of those busy days or whatever. We talked a little bit and chit chatted or whatever. So I'm really excited to have you both on the show today. So thank you so much.
Thanks for having us.
Hey, man, and I'll tell you, you missed the best part of my bio. The first line in that says that I was Radar's best buddy.
Oh my gosh, I'm so glad that you caught that because, it's so weird. But you know when you're like your brain kind of skips over stuff like that? So,
oh, man, when you're in the zone, you're in the zone.
Well, I'll tell you, yesterday, so I'm working on this little book anthology, and I was reading one of the short stories, and I don't know if it's just my brain lately or what, but I totally skipped over a whole chunk of the story. And I sent the author a message. I was like, "Hey, can you tell me about this?" And they're like, "Oh yeah. I just I had my blinders on or something." So yeah, I'm so glad. I mean, I'm glad that you caught that, and I'm sorry to hear about your puppy dog.
Oh, it's life. The interesting thing I think is that you mentioned you didn't know Kevin was an illustrator, and neither did Kevin. The biggest push, James Dean is absolutely an inspiration, but the biggest push for getting these books rolling out was, I am absolutely not an artist.
Mm-hmm.
No how. I can see it in my brain. I can't put it on paper for anything. Turns out Kevin can, only he didn't know that. So when we sat down and got together, they kind of came pouring out of the both of us.
The mesh.
And
yeah.
We love him, and he really created this. I don't know if you've gone and looked at the website, but we think he's adorable, and he really catches your eye.
Oh yeah, I definitely think he did a good job with the design of Rescue Radar, the character, and then looking at the book covers. You got a couple of the book covers here, and some of the other characters. Like I see like a little cat and a bird.
You right?
Yeah. So good job, Kevin. Kristi, what gave you? I know you said on here that it kind of gave you the push, but have you had this idea to do a book for a while, or I mean,
yes. So I've always been, I always wanted to do some kind of writing since I was very young. Didn't know for sure what kind of direction that was going to take. I was a stay-at-home mom for a long time before I was into 911 communications, and actually during that time I was also a preschool teacher for my own kids when they were in preschool. And way back then I remember thinking, because my kids are long out of preschool, I remember thinking how there was certain ideas that I would really like to get across in certain ways. Things like lessons that are important, all those things that you want to make sure that your kids know, like not bullying or safety lessons or teamwork, these things that are really important that you want to always make sure that you've got that book in the classroom, or the really important ones that are the basics, numbers, letters, colors, all those ones that are all the lessons that get repeated over and over and over again. The favorites that you like to have. Wouldn't that be fun to get those across in my own way? And it just kind of was a combination of my public safety background, wanting to make sure I'm always the one who gave the tours to all the little kids that came into the 911 communication center.
Okay.
And I was a 4-H mom. I don't know. I guess that part of me just never has gone away. All that mothering, making sure everybody's got what they need. And then here we have this little character that I'd like to keep alive. He's so adorable. He's really cute. Everybody is drawn to him. And when you take all of those things and you put them together, we just got this great idea.
And was Radar terrier, or what kind of dog was Radar?
He's a Boston Terrier.
Okay.
Yep.
Yeah.
That's a Boston Terrier.
Radar was the coolest little dog, man. Like I met him. I probably got to hang out with Radar for about a year, and he was just this neurotic little Boston Terrier.
We called him the nervous butler.
And the thing is, Kristi was talking about people being drawn to him, but the real Radar, I mean, if you walked around the apartment complex that we lived in, everybody knew Radar, because he was just this little guy. You know, he'd come up and check you out and see what was going on, and you know, and that was the way he was all the way until we eventually had to put him down, unfortunately. But he was it's kind of funny to say it, but he was a charismatic little dog.
He just kind of grew on you, huh?
Instantly.
Yeah.
Instantly. So
the sitting down with, getting that push with, James Dean gives this talk when you go and see him somewhere about the birth of Pete the cat. How he was born, how he drew this really cool picture. He carries it around with him, and he sits down ostensibly to entertain the kids. But who's really talking to are the parents, because the kids really don't care how Pete the cat was born, how writing became for James Dean. Kids don't care about that.
Yeah.
They just want to see this guy read them a story. But he's very entertaining and charismatic as a person, not to mention his books are wonderful. And he brings out this picture, he tells this story, he entertains the children while explaining how he came up with this wonderful thing that he does. And I have all these ideas percolating from when I had my kids little, when I was this preschool teacher, when I had these safety ideas, when I'm 4-H mom, all these things. And I'm thinking, you know, I've been wanting to do this. I've been wanting to do this. So I sit down and he gives me 10 minutes. And Kevin knows him. We've talked to him in a book signing that day for a few minutes and whatever. He's the nicest man. One of the nicest people I've ever met. And I just say to him, you know, you really inspired me today with your talk. And he asked me, and he wanted to know, what did you mean? You know, what do you mean by that? How did I inspire you? And I said, kind of, you know, I have all these ideas. You should do them. Put them down. Roll with them. Don't worry about the fact that there's all these other things, or the market's this, or just do with your idea. Go with it. That's what I did, and you might be surprised. And I couldn't shake that. I thought, if he's telling me that, he didn't ask me what my idea was. It didn't make any difference. He just said, if you're passionate about it and you've had these ideas for a long time, you should do something with that. That
is so true. Hold that thought for just a second. We got to do a station ID. I can't believe it's already the quarter hour. Everybody, you're listening to the Adam Messer Show here on WRUULP, Savannah, Georgia, 107.5 FM, WRUU.org. We are Savannah Soundings Community Radio with Global Soul. And my special guests today are the author and illustrator of Rescue Radar. So we have Kristi Chandler and we have Kevin Grogan. And Kristi was just talking about having this just pushing desire to kind of share some of those parenting. Um, I think they're like moral lessons, what you're talking about. Like, cause my wife and I, we have 3 kids, and and I think if you are a good parent and you love your children, that extends to other children. It's not just you don't just love your children. You see other kids and you're like, hey, what what can I do as a parent? And I subbed. I actually worked I was a financial aid director. I was a financial aid advisor, and then after I got out of the school systems, the university system, um, I subbed for like a year, and I was in the elementary schools and up to I didn't really do high school. I just did up to 8th grade, and you go in the classroom and you see the kids, and I'd subbed in actually a couple different of the schools where like I had to do the in school suspension stuff, as a sub.
Right.
And the kids, these kids are troubled. They have different problems, But I'm like, who doesn't? A lot of the kids out there, they don't know how to deal with stuff because they're kids. They're little kids, So I always try to look at it from a perspective of, okay, I might be here for one day, but what can I do for this child today? How can I help this kid today? So I think it's
Right.
really cool how you said, okay, I've got these ideas, and I want to share this character, and inspired by your dog, Radar, and I think it's really neat that you carry on that idea of saying, okay, well, these are all these things that I like, and I totally agree with the storytelling. It's just there's so much stuff out there, but we like to see the same thing but new, right? I mean, like,
Sure.
if you have a favorite character, you want to see what the new character is doing, you know, and so that's kind of cool. Especially like I was looking at and Kevin had sent me some pictures before with the T-shirt stuff that y'all were doing, which I think is really cool. But I pulled up the book section here, and you got the case of the playground bully, and then the case of the wandering bird, and then the case of the crossing lion. I think it's pretty cool how you're gonna have like these little adventures that the kids can follow along with.
Right. So we created it so that the idea is that Radar is a superhero.
Mm-hmm.
Every single book has a lesson, and something is going to happen, and Radar is coming to the rescue to fix the lesson, to teach the kids a moral, like you're saying, whatever it is, whether it's don't cross against the light, don't ride your bike without a helmet, don't be a bully on the playground. And each one of these books is set at some place recognizable in Savannah.
Mm-hmm.
So all the characters are animals, all different kinds of animals, all different locations in Savannah. We have the website set up so you can go to rescueradarbooks.com and take a look at different characters, different book covers, and we're slated for, keep your fingers crossed for us, 6 titles coming out in November. Hoping to roll all of that out in the Bluffton Book Festival in late November.
Okay, good.
Depending on COVID.
Yeah,
Yeah.
yeah. Well, speaking of that, I just had, I've been doing the Books and Brews, and I just had to cancel it because I was talking with Southbound Brewing Company, and just right now we were going to do it in June, and we just had to cancel it. So we're gonna try to do it later on in the year. So hopefully they'll have that, and then hopefully maybe you can get in next year with the book festival or something like that. I definitely I'd already talked to Kevin about him coming back, but I definitely would love to have y'all with the Savannah Authors Expo. But we're gonna have to play it by ear, like it's when we can schedule it, because
Right.
But
Absolutely.
That's the scary thing about these times, is everything is uncertain.
yeah.
But in a lot of ways that's negative because nothing's up. But for us, it's been extremely positive because over the last couple of weeks, I mean, shoot, it's extending months now. We've been able to do a lot with the whole Rescue Radar series. Like
Mm-hmm.
Kristi said, initially we were going to release just those 3 titles, but now we're up to 6.
Wow.
Which will be, again, it's based in Savannah. We're trying to tap into the whole tourism thing, but they're recognizable places: Forsyth Park, City Market,
Mm-hmm.
the Cotton Exchange. And we're gonna try and talk with a few local businesses that are landmarks and try and incorporate them into a few stories too, to make this a very Savannah thing.
Mm-hmm. I think that's great. You know,
Want to celebrate the city and bring in the lessons, and we have these bright colors, and they're board books. They're made to be durable and handled by the little kids.
yeah, I
The
was going to
top
ask you about
young.
that.
Yeah,
With that, are you guys going through a publisher, or are you self-publishing, or how are y'all doing that?
we're self-publishing, made in America through. We would be using Pint Size Productions, which is the
Right outside of Buffalo, New York.
yep.
Cool. So they're a publisher. You send them your stuff and they print it out for you.
Yeah,
Yes.
they're a printer.
They're a
Okay,
print.
cool. That's awesome. Yeah, I think this little cardboard books that the kids get, they're great because then the kids can kind of play with them and beat them up. I just put out well, it's kind of weird, but I just put out a kind of like a rudimentary version of my Bill the Lone Neck Dragon. So I actually wrote a children's story and illustrated myself like 2017. And I went to a school to talk to the kids about writing and stuff like that. And I had so much fun. And then with talking about the COVID-19 stuff, there were a lot of kids, all of a sudden they just had to, stop going to school. So
Right.
I shared the Word document with a bunch of different teachers that I knew, and they gave it to their kids and let them do like a little. So what I did was, like, you remember Shel Silverstein with the black and white and the
Yeah.
poetry.
Absolutely.
Yeah, that's how I set mine up. But I wanted to see what it looked like as like a paperback, and so I used Amazon, and I got the first kind of like the first copy of it just to see. I wanted to do just to see what it would look like, And so I'm working on actually updating the cover. It's kind of weird because I see you got the digital art, Kevin. I've never really gotten into digital art, but I just got a program called Procreate, and so I'm starting to kind of get into. And I've got an Apple iPad and an Apple Pencil, so I'm just now starting to get, because I can draw. I know how to draw, and I know how to do like graphic design and stuff like that. But I've never done digital art. And so I love the idea that y'all work together with these stories, and that you have stuff like with the Forsyth Park, like on the cover, there's the fountain, and you've got like a park there, and then like over on the Case of the Crossing line, you have where Rescue Radar visits City Market. And you've got like a picture of City Market, or it actually kind of looks like it might be the Capitol almost, but. So I think that's so cool how you're integrating with the stories. Y'all are integrating, the story, the character, the little lessons for the kids, and pulling it all together.
No, it's been a lot of fun, and it's been a huge learning experience. Like you said, Adam, you got a bunch of books out, and you've done it a couple of different ways. My book has been out for 3 years, probably 3 years and 1 week now. And
I
did the
know
same
you had
thing.
your book birthday like a week ago or so, right?
Yeah. But it was the same thing. I went through Amazon and all that kind of stuff. But the board books creates a whole different thing. Because,
Right.
print on demand is a great thing for indie authors, because you don't have to put up front costs, and the planning is a little less, because it really has, publishing is, like I said, better than I do, has become a very anybody can do it now.
But it's not available for board books.
I know, right? You have to buy it. I was just gonna say, you guys have to invest into the printing of probably so many copies and the setup and all, right?
Absolutely. And the thing is, when I did Black Sheep, basically what I did was I founded a little LLC, just to put that out, and we called it 1108 Publications. So the whole Rescue Radar series will be published under the same umbrella of 1108 Publications. So, but again, as similar as that is, the huge difference was finding a printer that could make board books, because Amazon, Book Baby, all of these,
Lula,
there are no
I think it's
companies.
Lula. Well, I think it's Lula's the other one too. They do
Yeah.
hardbacks, but it's not the same.
Yeah,
Nope.
no, and board books, they wouldn't do it. So all of the companies that we found initially were Chinese. And, when you're talking about January and February timeframe in the United States, and you're talking to Chinese companies, then this little thing called COVID-19 hit.
Oh, the manufacturing just kind of ground to a halt.
Yeah. No, and the thing is, we extensively, and we're both very patriotic. I'm an Army veteran, and so it's very, very important to us to make this as American as we possibly can.
Oh, I think it's great. I mean, like, even with the Amazon books, they're printed right in Columbia, South Carolina.
Exactly.
And I love that we can, it's neat with the print on demand, because you can get, whatever amount of copies you want. But there's I don't know how to say it. I love paperbacks and all, but there is a difference with, like, with the hardbacks, or like with the children's cardboard. I don't even know if that's the right word for it. What is the? Oh,
it's really not cardboard. It's called a board book. It's not the same thing as cardboard.
It's foam, really.
It's not. I don't know.
But the idea behind it was when we were looking at the format and how we wanted to do it and that kind of stuff. There's really a lot of cool stories that come behind it. But when we looked at the format, what we want is to provide stories to children ages 5 and under, and not only teach them, the lessons of sharing and all the, and Kristi tells the cool stories. But in my head, what I wanted was, I wanted Radar's face. I wanted it to be kind of like their buddy, and kids,
we want them to love him.
As early as possible, we want them learning how to manipulate pages, opening a book, turning the pages, getting them, comfortable doing that. And then when they're done with the story, they can take Radar with them anywhere they want to go. And he'll, he's sturdy enough where, if they drop him in water, he'll be all right.
I knew a lady that did the Usborne books. I don't know if you've ever heard of those or not, but they do a lot of, like, children's books and stuff like that. And I think those are so cool. Like the kids' books like that. So we need to take a little bit of a break, y'all. We're going to be back in a few minutes. So everybody tuning in, thank you so much. Take a listen to these messages from our station, and we'll be back in about 2 minutes.
This portion of WRUU-LP Savannah Soundings programming is brought to you by listeners and the Ships of the Sea Museum. One of the hidden secrets of the Ships of the Sea Museum is its gardens. Native plants are interspersed with exotic tropical plants throughout the gardens. Visitors can enjoy everything that has earned the Ships of the Sea Museum the Trip Experts 2015 Experts' Choice Award. You can find out more about the Ships of the Sea Museum at the website shipsofthesea.org. Now you have a chance to support both Savannah Independent Artists and WRUU during this shelter-in-place order to stop the spread of COVID-19. Creatives in Need is a group of independent artists hosted by the Roots Up Gallery, which is collaborating with WRUU during this shelter-in-place to offer an online art gallery at www.rootsupgallery.com. For every work of art sold at this online gallery, the artists receive 80% from the sales and 20% goes to WRUU and its programs like Art on the Air. Interested listeners can go to www.rootsupgallery.com to start shopping today.
WRUU 107.5 FM is a new and different listener-supported and all-volunteer community radio station for Savannah. Our diverse broadcast and web programming is supported by generous listeners who value our passion and spunk. We are independent of other media and receive no government or large corporate support. People like you are our largest and most important source of our funding. Go to wruu.org to find out how you can make a one-time or a monthly contribution. Thank you.
WRUU-LP Savannah, Georgia, 107.5 FM, WRUU.org. We are Savannah Soundings, community radio with global soul.
All right, and thank you everybody for your generous donations. I just want to talk for a minute for just a minute about that. Our station, I'm coming up on my second anniversary being with WRUU as a host, and over the last couple of years, I've had an opportunity to do something I always loved. When I was growing up, I used to listen to talk radio. I always thought it'd be kind of cool if I had my own radio show. Not like, like it was like one of those goals. I was like, oh gosh, I've got to do this type thing. But I always thought it would be kind of cool because I liked listening to talk radio. And then with the, you folks that are, people that might be familiar with me, that I've been writing for the newspaper. And so my backstory, how I got involved with WRUU is actually that I interviewed Dr. Dave Lake, who is our station manager, about the WRUU Tunes and Brews, which was a fundraiser that they were doing back in 2018. Yeah, I think it was like April of 2018. And one of the things that he said at the end of the interview was that they were looking for different show ideas and hosts or whatever. And so I said, hey, you know what? I interview different people, authors and artists and entertainers. And so that's how I got involved with WRUU. And so when you decide that you want to do a donation, you can go to wruu.org. You can make a donation one time. You can make a monthly donation. We have different fund drive runs and we do like pledge drives and stuff like that. But it helps me, be able to bring on guests like Kristi and Kevin, so that we can talk about, their stuff. Because honestly, there is so much stuff out there in the world today, right? And there's like YouTube and there's, Zoom and all this other stuff. And radio is one of those mediums that, yes, radio is still around, but, how many shows are out there that, of where people focus on what we're doing here at WRUU? So that's just one thing I'd like you to consider. Please think about doing a donation. Even if it's just $1. $1 actually, believe it or not, goes a long way with what we're doing here at WRUU, and we appreciate every one of you out there. So with that being said, Kevin and Kristi, thank you so much for being on the show. And we were talking right before, talking about the publishing aspect of putting the books out. So Kristi, when you were thinking about this book and you're like, okay, how do I want to get this out there to the world? What made you decide that you wanted to do like a board book?
Well, because I really felt like the messages that I wanted to send were things that kids should know early on. Mm-hmm. And having a couple of kids of my own, I have a grandson. I have a whole bunch of nieces and nephews, and a lot of, I've just had a lot of kids in and out of my house, and I love kids. I love to be around kids. I enjoy teaching them, hanging out with them, playing with them, whatever. And I just have that knowledge that if you hand a kid a book, which I just want to interject here before we go any further, I think that's really important, handing a kid a book. Mm-hmm. What Kevin said about manipulating the pages, opening it and closing it and looking it and gleaning some knowledge from it, especially now. I don't want to sound like Grandpa had to walk uphill both ways to school, but these days, right, everyone has technology on them all the time. Mm-hmm. A book, handing a little child is a book. I mean, a book is so important. The older you get, the slower it is, the slower you learn. That's just a scientific, biological fact.
Mm-hmm.
When you're young, you soak it up so much quicker. If we forget to put books in their hands and let them know that the knowledge is abundant in a book, they will not get any from there. And they will think that everything comes from their phone, everything comes from the television, everything comes from their video games. And it doesn't, and it shouldn't.
I
So I want
agree.
to put a book in their hand that gives them something. I don't care if it's a super simple lesson, any kind of a lesson. So the lesson can be that this color in front of them is red. They have to learn that somehow.
Oh, I completely agree. Growing up, I loved reading and I loved comic books. I used to read like sci-fi and fantasy and stuff like that. Also, in like high school, I got really heavy into Shakespeare and stuff with AP English and all. And I completely agree. One of the things, this is something I just love it because when I started the Savannah Quill in 2016, the idea was to connect writers and readers to promote literacy. And I completely agree. I believe, I don't think that you have to have a college education. Even though I have a college education, I don't want to sound like a hypocrite here, okay? That was like my goal, but that was also like how society kind of pushed us. Go to school, go to school, go to school, You don't necessarily have to have a college degree, but you do need strong communication skills and reading, literacy, writing. Those are all important factors for success. So I love the idea that you're, saying, hey, I want to get these books into the kids' hands, and I think the idea with the board book, it's so tactile. The kids can play with it, they can run around the house with it. And
Right, and that's the thing. So I want these lessons are lessons that they need to learn young.
Yeah.
You want a book in their hand young. And if you hand a child, a small child, a pre-kindergarten child, a paper book, a regular paperback, it's going to be destroyed, and they're through no fault of the child. They play hard. They're not skilled with small.
They don't have the dexterity.
Yeah, they're with those little movements. So you got to give them something that they can handle at their age, and that's where a board book comes in.
And I completely agree with that because the way I designed the Bill the Long Necked Dragon book was as a coloring book for second, third, and fourth graders, that age range. And I wanted it so that the kids could not only read a story, they're reading poetry, they're reading a story, it's a storybook, but they can color the pages however they want to.
They're engaged.
Yeah, and it's given them a chance, to, like you said, it's given them a chance to learn something. And in my story, I don't really have a moral lesson per se, but like the character Bill, he's got a really long neck and small wings, so he can't fly like the rest of the dragons.
He's a handsome fellow, though.
Yeah. And one day the storm comes through and blows Castle Armstrong's flag down. Right, so I love that the little Armstrong. So I love the idea that y'all are doing with the Savannah thing, and the king's like, hey, I need to get the tallest dragon to do this job, and who can do it? Bill. So yeah, I love the idea with storytelling, especially with children. Being able to show them something relatable, like being different. Like Rescue Radar. He looks, like you said, he looks like a little butler, and the way you design the character, it pops out. It's like, hey, look at this little guy. He's right here. He's checking out. He's like, what are you doing? What are you doing?
Yeah.
The other thing we're doing with it is, and this is one thing, and a huge plug to, it's called Pint Size Productions. Like I said, pintsizeproductions.com. You can go do it. But what we've done is we've actually had a couple titles printed digitally.
Nice.
So we actually have a few in hand just that we're using for demos and promo. But the colors, the bright colors, the reds, the greens, the blues, they're so bright for children who are, developmentally, they can hold the book, but maybe they don't understand the story, but they'll definitely see those colors. They'll definitely engage with it. And they can, again, you said the tactile experience, they're holding it. They're physically getting it. And, there's a connection there right away. And we want to do that as early as possible because, and then, then there's radar space, which grabs everybody. That's why, you know, we're putting it on everything we can.
Yeah.
T-shirts, bouncing balls, temporary tattoos, you know, everything we can, so people will see this face and say, hey, what's that?
And we have a coloring book as well, putting together an activity pack that will be available so you can get some different things, engage in different activities, get the kids, want them to know Radar, to enjoy him and his friends, learn the lessons, and like Kevin said, make this their buddy.
I think it's really cool. Kevin, tell me more about, like, you were not an illustrator, but it turns out it was one of your hidden talents. What did you like? How did you figure out, like, how to draw Radar, and what programs did you use? And, you know, because you got a great, honestly, you have a great color palette with the book. I mean, like, the covers, you know, it's great. You got really good contrast, and it offsets well. You know, you did really good. So talk to us about that process. What was that like? Because, you know, here you had Kristi's her story, you know, and you're like, okay, well, I've got to illustrate that. And then, you know, as an illustrator, the job of an illustrator, you have to be able to visually, you know, demonstrate that, you know, the author's vision. So talk to us about that.
Well, man, I got to tell you, the funny thing about all that is this has been, you know, my whole professional career and life has been very, very serious, you know, military, law enforcement, all this kind of stuff. So I've dealt with very, very serious topics over the course of my life. And, you know, when, you know, Kristi and I have been together for a while now, and, you know, we have similar sense of humor and that kind of stuff. But we went to the Bluffton Book Festival, and I was doing a signing, and that's where she sat down with James Dean. But let me tell you, big plug to James Dean too, is, you know, he was local to Savannah, so I had met him through, I actually pressure washed his house with a buddy of mine, a guy who runs Waterworks Pressure Washing. If anybody's looking for good pressure washing, give Mike Lee a call at Waterworks. But we worked with James Dean, and that was when I was in the process of writing my book, which was not a children's book, none of that. But him just being an engaging person, like, really kind of opened my eyes and gave me very good advice. And the one piece of advice that James gave me was, you know, nobody's going to do this stuff for you. And I don't care if you're going through a traditional publishing house. I don't care if you're publishing it yourself. The marketing, the actual selling of the books, it's all you. You are marketing yourself. But you fast forward to last year's Bluffton Book Festival, which is a great event that happens at the end of November every year. Hopefully they'll have it again this year. But we were up there, and Kristi came to me afterwards and said, look, I got to do this. I've wanted to do this. We'll go. So that was on a Saturday. And on Sunday, this is a long way to answer your question, but that next Sunday, we sat down and I have always done things in Microsoft, PowerPoint, Word, everything. So if you look at the characters, and if you look at pretty much everything that's drawn in these books, you know, it's basically based off shapes, circles and squares and you know, you got hearts as noses and that kind of stuff, and that's basically it. So, you know, it's not like it's not like I have an artistic gift or anything like that. What I did was took a bunch of shapes, manipulated it, and those colors, man, that's what really got me. So we played around with it. I started in all of the characters, from Rascal Raccoon to Callie Kitten to Tommy Turtle to Squiggly and Giggly Squirrel to Izzy the Iguana to Axel and Claude and Ralph, and, you know, all the different dogs, and Penelope Peacock, all the different characters that we've done. I start with their eyes. You start with two circles, you draw their eyes, and then, you know, they're born from there. Radar was all ears and all eyes. So basically it was funny because I had drawn them a couple different ways, and we were looking at them, and over the course of hours, and a lot of laughter, I might add. Radar took several different shapes, but then it was the eyes, and when I separated the eyes and gave that big space, that was when Radar was and the thing is, what's best, and I have pictures of it, and I'm hoping it does well where people will actually want to see this stuff. But I have pictures of me with the actual Radar in my lap, working on Rescue Radar, the book.
Wow. So you've been working on it for a little while then. What program did you end up using for, like a Microsoft Paint or something, or what?
PowerPoint.
Oh, okay.
The whole thing is done on PowerPoint. And,
the pictures and all?
What's that?
The pictures too?
All of it.
Wow. Congratulations. Yeah. It's crazy because the first time I did an ebook magazine, I did like this one for the Savannah Quill, and I used PowerPoint because you can change the page sizes and all. And that's actually how I published my first magazine.
Yep. Yeah. No, it's a great program. And the thing is, I learned how to use PowerPoint in the Army, and it's been my go-to ever since. Like everything, I can make the most mundane, boring topic exciting with PowerPoint. People always joke about, oh, we're going to training, it's going to be death by PowerPoint. My PowerPoints, man, I animate stuff. I have a blast with it, and
you did a great job with the design. I'll tell you what, I'm pretty impressed because I was thinking, with the way you did the shapes and all, I was thinking like, okay, well, wonder what program you used. And that is just another great point, folks listening. You don't have to have any kind of fancy tools to do stuff that you want to do. I mean, literally, I tell people all the time, like, if you want to write, get a piece of paper, you can get a pen or a pencil or whatever you like to write, get a notebook, you can write. You don't have to have anything fancy.
Yeah, if you don't like to handwrite, type it, get it down.
Yeah.
You can do it so many different ways. And again, I go back and I give James Dean a lot of credit for that. Yeah, because his ultimate message is, if it means something to you, do it.
Well, PowerPoint is such a great tool, especially to be able to move around, like, type and pictures and all kinds of stuff. I mean, I didn't know you could actually draw in it, though. That's pretty cool.
You can do, you can, like you said, though, it doesn't matter what your avenue. It really doesn't matter. I mean, I can tell people and I can sit down, but I could never give a class. Like I could sit down and show you how I did this and that. But, what was cool to me was Kristi and I sat down, and we're sitting in the same formation now. She's sitting in a big comfy chair. I'm sitting on the couch, and she would say, no, I kind of wanted to do this. And I would take what she was saying to me and see it in my head. And then I would just pound away on the computer until I saw, until what was in my head came out on that screen. And let me tell you, there is no more fun. There's no more joy than when you make that connection. Like when you see it in your head, and then all of a sudden you can create it on a screen or on a piece of paper in front of you. That's why I've always admired people that have, that type of artistic skill where they can look at something and then draw it. That's always amazing, because I don't have that by any means. I found a way to adapt, and, if I want to make a perfect circle, PowerPoint, thank God.
There you go. Kristi, what'd you think when you finally saw it and you're like, this is it?
I was amazed. And make no mistake, he says it's not artistic, but it absolutely is.
Oh yeah, it's great.
PowerPoint fantastically. I can't make this. That was, he's saying, I came to him and I said, I have to do this. I have to do this. And he's not joking. But I said, I don't know what I'm going to do because I can't. And he said, what do you mean you can't? And you've never met anyone more tenacious than Kevin Grogan, I got to tell you.
That's awesome.
But I said, I can't draw. I have zero, I can't draw. And he said, well, what he always says, we'll figure it out. And if you see these books, by God, we figured it out.
It's been so much fun.
It has been an amazing ride, and it keeps going.
The cool part about it is the back of every book is the same also, but it features, other points in Savannah. City Hall is on the back of every book. The Forsyth Park Fountain is on the back of every book. The Talmadge Bridge, and then there's a big radar's face. So you'll see it, of course, and we have our printed in the USA logo on it with radar's face on it, and it just, we want to drive it home. So it's basic branding and merchandising. You just, as much as you can. So that we've just had so much fun with it, and I haven't shown it to anybody that hasn't been like, "Whoa, what's that?
What's that? It's so cute."
Yeah, I think that's important too. You have to have, a message and share, because if you don't believe in your product, nobody will, as much as you will. So.
Yeah, no. If you're because the thing is, Adam, and you know this from your, tons of books that you put out, is you're not really selling your book. You're selling yourself.
Yeah. That's with anything in life. I mean, it all comes back to relationships with folks. I think, the transactions will happen, but really it's all about relationships. If you're, Kristi, like you said earlier, you had a chance to talk with James Dean for a few minutes one-on-one, and he didn't even ask you what it was. He was just like, just do it, go for it, try it. And that had a big impact on you,
It did, because he was just pointing out, if you're passionate, just like what he said to Kevin, no one's going to do it for you. And if it means something to you, you can do it. And, and this is the thing, it'll happen if you're passionate about it, if you feel this way about it. I mean, he had some other words of advice, that I'll just keep to myself, but I don't want to misquote him. But he just...
You can always paraphrase.
I'm very inspired by him.
Yeah. I'll tell you one thing that I love, and this is something that I share with folks, is that you're not going to have all the resources that you think you need, but as long as you're resourceful and you're taking action towards your goal, you're doing something towards that goal, you're going to find a way. And then it's really interesting. I mean, be honest with you, being on the show today, talking with y'all today, it's interesting how when you have folks that are doing similar things, the good folks now, okay, and I'm not trying to knock anybody out there, but the folks that are the really good folks, they're the ones who shine light on you, and they're like, hey, did you see this rescue radar thing?
Right.
Or Kevin and I was like, hey Kevin, I'd like to have you on the show. Like when you were showing me the stuff about the t-shirt stuff, I was like, you know what? I think this would be kind of cool, to have y'all on and talking, because I've had different children's book authors and illustrators on, and I've had different entertainers and stuff like that. And I thought it'd be kind of a neat subject for people to be able to talk, listen to, and because a lot of our listeners, they have kids, they have grandkids, and so on. So.
The fun part about the whole thing is momentum. If you put effort behind anything, and you go, as long as you are moving forward, you can do it. Like you said, the resources may not be there, and in our case, we have no clue about children's books. It's not.
Yeah.
It's not. I'd go so far as to say I really don't understand the book business at all, and I've been loosely in it for 3 years, but
you've had a level of success too, because you sold several thousand copies of your book, so that's great.
And like I said, but I've done that
by hand. Yeah, you've done it by sweat and tears and blood and just getting out there with grit.
I surrounded myself with people who knew what they were doing and were very supportive, and because I developed those relationships, they helped me.
Oh yeah,
and they pushed it, because nobody can do any of this. I mean,
Oh yeah.
You can't do it by yourself.
Definitely cannot.
We support others, and they support us, and we're just pushing an idea that we're passionate about. We believe in it, and we think we have a good message. We know we have an adorable character.
Well, and what's great is, and I truly feel this, and is what I love about Savannah, is we also have support in the community. I mean, as soon as I mentioned Rescue Radar to you, Adam, you invite us on the show. Okay? As soon as I mentioned Rescue Radar to the book lady, Miss Joni, who owns the book lady down on Liberty Street, she said, "When can I get it?"
Absolutely.
You know, when we went to E-Shavers and talked to them, they wanted to know how they could help, when we could get it in. You know, one of the greatest things was we went to Books on Bay, which is another local great bookstore, and she deals in antique. But she said there's a void for children's books that are have Savannah that is, you know, that the little ones can take and not damage. So hence the board book. You know, it just supported the thing. But that's how it goes, and it builds in the local community. And then, you know, you bump into, you know, I mean, Jim Marakis at Connect Savannah, Tom Barton at the Savannah Morning News.
Hold that thought, Kevin. We've got a break until 4, so just hold that thought. And we'll come back at the second hour of the show, and we'll continue talking about it. So,
absolutely.
Everybody, you're listening to WRUU LP Savannah, Georgia, 107.5 FM, WRUU.org. We are Savannah Soundings Community Radio with Global Soul, and we will be back at